any degree you do will end up being useful when you're in a job that is as wide-ranging as this one. There have been so many moments where I've been like, I'm so glad I picked this career. Obviously having that enthusiasm is really important, but also if they've put you on that shift, it's because you're good enough to do it as well.
Welcome to How to Be a Journalist, a podcast by News Associates. I'm Plamedi Mbungu, and thank you very much for tuning in. I'm a recent university graduate, and I work at News Associates. I'm early in my career, and I need the wisdom from more experienced journalists. So to solve this problem, in every episode, I will dive into conversations with some of the most dedicated and talented journalists from all corners of our industry, asking questions about their careers, successes, and giving you a different view of the person behind the byline. Whether you're an aspiring journalist, a seasoned figure in the newsroom, or just interested in knowing what happens behind the scenes, you're in the right place. Today's guest is BBC Newsbeat senior journalist reporter Eleanor Shearwood. Before picking up her current role at BBC Newsbeat, she worked as a broadcast journalist in multiple capacities at ITN with Talk Radio, TalkSport, and Times Radio, just to name a few. But at the end of the day, I can introduce Eleanor forever, but I think it's just way better to hear from her herself.
Yeah, this is your life, hearing it all back to
you. So, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely no problem at all.
100%.
But my first question for you is essentially to help everybody understand you a bit more and what you're doing at the moment. So, your role at BBC Newsbeat. Tell me about it and take us through it.
Absolutely. So I am a senior journalist reporter at BBC Newsbeat, which basically we do the news for Radio 1, 1Extra and Asia Network. And my job is kind of a little bit of everything, which is really fun. So I will be a reporter on our programmes, getting sent here, there and everywhere, doing reports, talking to people in the street, talking to contributors from our studio as well. I also do our news bulletins every now and then, so reading on the past for 2 or 3 minutes. And then as part of my role as a senior journalist, I'll also edit our programmes. So people will pitch stories to us. I'll be the person that decides what goes in the programme and where, who does what, how that kind of will all sound, and then be responsible for checking people's scripts, checking people's packages when they come in, and then making sure the programme all runs to time. And then we'll also do lots of planning. We think about stories far in advance to kind of make sure that we're thinking a bit ahead of the game, and we've got some of our own journalism that's going out as well. So yeah, a bit of everything.
So in terms of the role just itself and to get to senior journalist reporter, it's very, very impressive. Because you were on the course in 2021. So in 4 years, you've got to this point. Does it feel good? Is it how do you, genuinely?
It feels very surreal. I remember reading my first bulletin on Newsbeat, which is kind of, I guess, what I used to listen to growing up, right? Like Radio 1, and just pinching myself almost, being like, this is crazy. I wanted to be here so long. Being in that studio, yeah, it was so exciting. And honestly, I think it's still something that I do today. Yeah.
So you're very much doing TV and radio. So you're doing both, presenting, as you said, that's quite a lot. So how do you deal with the responsibility of it all? Because I can imagine it can be quite a bit sometimes.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm mostly just doing radio. We kind of occasionally do crossovers. I've definitely got experience doing both before, but in terms of dealing with the responsibility of it, I think our job is so busy that you kind of don't have a choice but to do that, but to kind of get on top of things and deal with it, because you've got such tight deadlines that the show will be the show has to go on air at this time, so you have no choice but to suck it up, deal with the responsibility, and get your head around it. And it's such a fun job that it doesn't really feel half the time a job at all, but also you don't feel the pressure necessarily of that responsibility either.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where because you're in the role, you have the responsibility, you almost lock in.
100%, yeah. And you've got such an amazing supportive team around you, and then when you're not necessarily the person with the most responsibility, you know what that's like, so you all kind of lift each other up, support each other as well. It's definitely not just a one-person job.
Yeah, so I'm assuming there is almost a little bit of a camaraderie that builds up in
massively. Yeah, it's such a team.
Has there been people that you've you work with currently now at Newsbeat that you've known for years, maybe on a course or uni or anything like that? Or?
Not at Newsbeat, no. So everyone that I met there, I only met when I started there a year ago. But there are people that I still know from my News Associates course that now work in different parts of the BBC or work for completely different companies or outlets that I'm still in touch with and still talk to all the time. And so there's definitely camaraderie, not just in your own job, but across the industry as a whole, because you kind of, from being at News Associates, have those people everywhere, which is lovely.
I guess as well, like, yeah, you all have that one common experience that comes back from here.
Shorthand.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Shorthand is, something that I never quite got. I got to 50 at uni.
Yeah, that's what you need.
Called it there. Could I do the alphabet anymore? Probably not. Actually, maybe I have just that.
I think I bite myself for 10 words a minute, maybe.
Yeah?
On a good day.
Is it something that you've like had the opportunity to use, or?
Do you know what? I've been to court a few times with different jobs, and I did try and use it there, but I got such like imposter syndrome from watching all of the really experienced court journalists next to me flying across the paper, and I was just there like really struggling because it had been a while since I'd been at News Associates. So I have tried to use it, and I do sometimes still use it if I'm like writing notes in meetings and stuff, but 100 words a minute would maybe be a touch ambitious now.
Yeah. Well, so like you've gone to court. Is that your current role at the moment, or past one?
Less so in my job now, although that is something that could happen. But in my last job, when I was doing more like reporting specifically for bulletins and like live hits on the radio, I did go to a few court cases. The best one was Wagatha Christie, getting to go to that,
cool,
because normally when you go to court it's very serious, whereas that was like walking through Royal Courts of Justice and seeing Wayne Rooney just like right there. Felt like star spotting.
Oh no, honestly. Like I feel like, obviously, I don't know if I'd ever want to be called for jury duty, but like if the people that got called for it on that one, or getting to cover that one, that is insane.
Getting to say, oh yeah, and we're talking about his fake Insta Wazaroon 08 was a real highlight.
Yeah. So at BBC Newsbeat, what have been like the highlights that you remember? Like you're like, this is very, very cool that I've got the opportunity to cover X, Y, Z.
That is such a good question, because we've done so many fun things, but also so many like serious ones as well. I would say for me, my personal highlight was a few months ago, I did a load of FOIing and got some data for us on waiting lists for mental health treatment for young people that showed that they'd just gone up massively, basically. And the case study we had, she was just such a brilliant talker, and I was really proud of that piece, not only like doing my own bit of investigating, but also getting to give this amazing girl the chance to tell her story as well. And that kind of got picked up. So at the BBC, a lot of stuff gets shared, and that got picked up by different outlets. So having people text me being like, oh, that was on the Today programme, that was really nice as well.
Yeah.
But then also we've done so many fun things. I didn't go to the Eras tour, but I did get to chat to so many Swifties outside it. And Jedward, weirdly, which was really fun. And just getting to go and explore so many different parts of the UK that I maybe wouldn't have got to go to otherwise has definitely been a massive highlight as well.
Yeah, I mean, like Eras tour, that's just pretty cool to be fair.
And obviously the general election, I got to go to Belfast for that. So that was a really exciting moment to be a part of. That was my first general election. So I was buzzing with that.
Yeah, and in terms of like the progression of your current role as well, is there any positions that you have an eye on, or like where are you looking for your career to head off to, and from this point onwards? It's like
starting with the big questions.
Essentially just getting straight into it. So like you don't have to say anything like, oh, you're taking your boss's job or anything like that.
Keep an eye out.
Yeah. But like, what do you think is next for you?
I'm going to be so real with you. For like ages, Newsbeat was the job for me. I'd wanted to work there for so long. I mean, I moved to Birmingham for this job from London. And so I'm just really happy to be where I am right now, and still honestly soaking it all in. And still, I think in journalism, I think there's so much learning to be done all the time, that I still feel like I'm learning so much where I am right now that I haven't thought massively too far ahead. So I'm aware that's kind of a cop-out answer. But genuinely, I'm so happy to be where I am right now and still so excited by it. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very cool role to get. So like, you just said just then that you moved to Birmingham to work for Newsbeat. So like, why did you make that jump from leaving London and going to Birmingham, other than the job? And is Birmingham looking like it's a a new hotspot for journalism and roles over there?
So the BBC, I guess, is doing loads to move outside of London. And I think it's actually so important because for Newsbeat especially, a really big thing for us is getting out across the whole of the UK. So being in the middle of, being in the Midlands makes a lot of sense. Often, first thing in the morning, we'll have someone straight on a train to get to wherever. And if you're in London, the places you can get to, I guess, is a lot more limited. But for me as well, like I'd lived in London for 5 years, so I was happy to kind of go explore somewhere different. And I guess we're out and about so much anyway. You're kind of all over the place in the best way, that it's not been a huge deal.
Okay, that actually makes perfect sense. But where is home for you? Is it like London?
So I grew up in Oxfordshire. So like not super near to Oxford, but kind of like a tiny town.
Yeah. So what's that? How was making that jump from a small town to the big city? How has that been?
I remember, so I went to university in Durham, and when I arrived in Durham, I was like, wow, this is it. This is the big city.
Yeah.
And then very quickly realised that Durham is not a big city at all.
Yeah.
But because I studied languages at uni, I got the chance to go and live in cities abroad. So I lived in Paris, I lived in Granada. So I think having that experience, going back then to tiny Durham, not tiny Durham, going back then to small Durham, I was very ready to kind of make that jump to the big city. And also because a lot of my friends from uni then moved there. And I mean, I feel like I'd always wanted to live in London. I don't know about you, but commuting on the tube to work felt very exciting at the start.
I'll ask to follow up on that then. Obviously, you work for a national radio station. And before you've worked for a local, so you work for Riverside Radio in
that was my placement while I was here at News Associates. Yeah.
So compare talk to me through your experience at National, compare it to your time at Riverside.
I think it's a really hard comparison to make because for me, when I was at Riverside, I was learning, right? There were probably about 6 of us from News Associates. We were just kind of thrown in the deep end. We were producing the show. I remember learning to do the tech and putting one fader up and getting a round of applause. Everyone was so excited. Presenting the show, we were kind of doing everything. And it was fantastic because you're not going to go as a brand new journalist to a national radio station and get those kind of opportunities. So it was amazing for building our skills and stuff. And then when I then left News Associates, my first role, I guess, at a national station was making coffees. So printing stuff for people and cutting up tiny bits of audio. So it's a completely different kind of transition. I would say everything I did at Riverside gave me such a good grounding for then going to national radio. Even in terms of confidence, it gave me the confidence to kind of be pushy, to get to read bulletins there, because I was like, well, I've done it at Riverside, so how different can it be? Obviously, it is very different. Yeah. But in terms of confidence and the skills it gave me, it was absolutely invaluable.
Yeah. In terms of how to be a journalist guest, Riverside Radio has the flag is being waved.
I'm so not surprised.
So many.
We had such a fun time.
Yeah, because I guess as well in local news, they obviously chucked you into the deep end and just got you involved in doing so many different things. So I guess with the getting that opportunity to speak to people on the ground, is that something that you think is important for you?
Without a doubt, and it's something that we do all the time at Newsbeat now. Vox popping is such a big part of our job. Finding audience members who are super passionate about some of the subjects we're doing, that's massive for us. So it's as important at national radio as it is at local, 100%.
Yeah, and for people just starting out in journalism, the prospect of going out and grabbing a Vox pop can seem sometimes a little bit daunting. Have you ever had a situation where it did feel daunting, or has it always been boom?
Absolutely. Sometimes it still feels daunting. If I'm a bit tired, I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
My boss is listening. No, I don't. It's always a joy. I would say, it's a daunting thing to do, but because we do it so often, it's like with anything, you just have to pull your socks up and do it. And it's the kind of thing that actually it will take 10 seconds out of somebody's day. Most people won't mind that much. And I've never had properly awful experiences doing it. Sometimes it's just a bit awkward. Yeah. But I think a lot of journalism is about putting yourself in situations that maybe are uncomfortable for you. That's how you grow, that's how you learn. So
of course. When I was at uni doing and training, just doing vox pops and that sort of thing as well. Like, I'd always get nervous, like, right before. Like, I would just, like, for, like, the longest time, I would just be chilling. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be okay. As long as I've prepped, I'll be fine. Until I would go up to them, like, oh, damn.
Now I actually have to go and do it. Yeah. I used to get very scared, and then I'd be, like, texting my mum, like, can you just send me some, like, psych yourself up messages? She got really sick of it in the end. She was like, you're just going to have to do this by yourself, girl.
Yeah.
But it's a rite of passage, I think.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to do it.
No, of course. So then, next question is, obviously, in your current role as well, you also find yourself sometimes on the TV as well. So that was like before, like you had your first BBC News at 10, a story on...
Yeah,
spiking.
that was just my voice.
That was just your voice, okay.
But it was one of those things where I think it was like maybe the King's Speech, I'm not sure, where there were loads of different things. And one aspect of that we went really big on at Newsbeat was spiking, because it was a really relevant story to our audience. Obviously, like a lot of our audience, 16 to 25-year-olds will be at university or just starting to go out, that sort of thing. So I went and interviewed a case study on that with a camera from the socials team. And she was just a really brilliant talker. And so she got used across the BBC. And yeah, they asked if they could use my voice to then do the report on spiking as a whole, using my interview that I'd done. And it was such a fun experience, because I'd never done anything for the news at 10, and getting to do that Eleanor Shearwood BBC News, I must have done it about 20 times just to make sure I'd like got the tone right. I was so excited.
Like that is, I was listening to it when I was doing the research for this, and I was just like, this is obviously like important story as well. Like it was just very, very cool. So like, how did you go about like sourcing the story and finding her?
It was a real team effort, actually. It was something that we'd been like, so we do a lot of like forward planning at Newsbeat, and it was something that our planning team had been working on, and had found her, I think, through TikTok. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you do your pre-screening research chats, and it had been flagged that she might be really good. I was just the reporter on the day that was assigned the story, so that it happens, to kind of everyone across our team. But yeah, went and met up with her. I think we went to her house actually and just had a chat. And yeah, her story was really powerful. She was just really eloquent.
How does it work, like the collaboration within your team, so that you've obviously got multiple teams that work to get a story, like a bulletin like that out? Like how does it, like take me through the process so I can understand?
So if you kind of have an idea for a story you want to do, you'll probably get given some planning time to do that, so you have time to kind of like put into it. If it's a story you've pitched, often the ideal situation is that you then get to go and do that story. We'll have teams that will be looking at the week ahead and kind of planning for how we're going to do stories, because we love to kind of get out across the country, go out and meet people, rather than doing everything from our studio. So if we can set that up ahead of time rather than on the day, then that just saves a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And in terms of like writing bulletins and stuff, in the morning there'll be somebody working with our breakfast newsreader to write the bulletins, or to come in and do like reports in those bulletins as well. We'll have multiple reporters on a programme, and then when you'll have, editors either working on that show or working above to kind of like refer up to if you need them, that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a massive team, and we all kind of do loads of different jobs within that, so we all kind of understand each other's jobs as well. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of cross collaboration, and I guess in my job, because I do so many different parts of it, and it's the same for any SJR, you kind of understand what other people will need when they're in their job. So it's really useful, I think.
Yeah. So then I think a decent place to segue to is, because obviously in your current role, you get to do, as you said, so many different facets, so many different parts of journalism. So if you had the opportunity to go back when you're maybe on the course, or just the first day of the course essentially, would you tell yourself to specialise as a journalist or generalise?
I think for me, because I'd always wanted to do news, I'd say generalise. And I would probably say generalise more, because I think one thing people don't realise is, like, for example, how much sport you're going to have to know. A lot of journalists will just kind of ignore that. Yeah. And actually we're required to do a lot of stuff like that. Working at TalkSport was really useful for me in terms of like getting into football and that sort of thing, which actually is like now something that I genuinely enjoy rather than just something that I had to learn for work. Mm-hmm. But I would say you do have to know about everything, but obviously it's always useful to have a subject that you're more passionate about if you're trying to pitch more niche stories. For me, I love reporting on health stuff. I find that so interesting. And normally if I'm pitching a story that I've researched at work, A lot of the time it will be something to do with that, just because that's what I love to report on, and that's kind of the area I've worked in and built up contacts in, and I used to work for the NHS, so it's kind of something that I know a lot about anyway, so it kind of felt quite natural. But I would say don't pigeonhole yourself as well, because you will end up, especially if you're in news, doing stuff about loads of other stories. And one thing that's really valuable, I think, is to be able to swat up on stuff really, really quickly. I always remember when the Titan submersible disaster happened, and I had to learn a load about submarines so quickly. Like that kind of thing will be part of your everyday. So I guess, have a specialism, have an area you're interested in, of course, but don't constrain yourself to that, because knowing about other stuff's always going to be useful to feed into that anyway.
Yeah, I'll always remember first university lecturer, and the tutor said, journalists need to know a little bit about everything.
Absolutely, a little bit about a lot, 100%. Yeah.
And obviously, you are living experience or a living example of exactly that. So then, take me back to your time. So before your time at the BBC, you did some work for ITN and then some work for News UK as well. So help me with the timeline of it all.
So when I was at News Associates, we were always told to listen to Times Radio, just because it was a really new station actually when I was here. And one of my friends on the course started working there, and I was like, girl, you've got to get me in. So she set me up with one of the producers to go and have a coffee with her. And she was like, we'll give you some freelance shifts, and if they go well, then, we'll keep you around, kind of thing. So I started there making coffees, printing, and then quickly started booking guests and that sort of thing, assistant producing. I also had applied for a job at Jeremy Vine's Channel 5 show while I was towards the end of the course, which I didn't get. But off the back of that, I got freelance shifts on that show. So doing research, chats with guests, screening callers, and then started doing assistant producing for them as well. So that would be, you would produce the pre-recorded part of the show, the paper review, and you'd be screening callers from the gallery as well, kind of making the straps and stuff to put on air. But during my time at Times Radio, I always kind of knew I wanted to be on air. I loved the Riverside Radio bulletins reading. So I just kind of went up to the head of news and I was like, can I have a go? And he kind of laughed at me, you've literally just got your NCTJ. He was like, send me a demo. So I did, and started shadowing. And then he called me one weekend and was like, everyone's really ill. You've got an NCTJ and your demo is all right. Can you read the news for a day? I'll support you from home. And off the back of that, ended up getting news reading shifts and then getting a reader reporter role about a year later after I'd been freelancing across their networks for about a year.
That is, very cool, and to see how opportunities just come out.
Yeah, honestly, now I don't know if I'd back myself to say the same thing, but I think at the time I was just so itching. I'd just come off the course, was still feeling really ready for it. So yeah.
So obviously in terms of freelancing for that year, how did you support yourself to be able to do so? And did the freelancing, were you able to get a semblance of security during that period of time?
I think because I got on really well with the people that booked shifts, both at News UK and ITN, I was able to kind of go to them if I didn't feel like I had enough work and be like, can you help me out with any other shifts? And they usually would find something so that they could help me out. I was kind of fine. I found it quite hard to balance in terms of they would be booking shifts for different times. So I'd already have my shifts locked in for say April, and then the other job would come up and be like, oh, can I book you for these days? So I'd end up, honestly, I used to do earlies into night shifts and would just work myself silly because I was quite scared to say no. But I also think I'm so glad that I did it now, because the range of skills I picked up was so valuable, and actually getting a chance to try different jobs. I did some time working on documentaries and developing those as well, stuff that I never thought I would do. I think if I'd have just gone straight into one job, it might have not been the right one. So I'm really glad that I had that time, and also to prove to myself that I could do it as well. I was very scared to freelance, but it was okay.
Yeah, if you had to give somebody advice for doing freelancing and trying to pick up shifts at the nationals or regional papers, what would you say would be best for them to do?
My advice with that and with anything is be pushy. I think you can't be shy. You have to kind of keep putting yourself forward. And while you're on those shifts, I think you need to really, especially initially, it does feel like you have to prove yourself. And I think that's probably because you do a lot of the time, kind of going above and beyond, which is hard and it's kind of like a lot of pressure. But there'll be so many people, I think, trying to do a similar thing. Just know why you're there, I think. And also, I guess while you're on this course, you're putting in all the work. You're doing it because you love it. And so when you're freelancing as well, you're doing it because you love it. Like there is a reason that you're there. Like, and it's not, obviously having that enthusiasm is really important, but also if they've put you on that shift, it's because you're good enough to do it as well and you are qualified. So having that self-belief, but also proving yourself and pushing yourself at the same time. It's all about balance.
Yeah, of course. It's trying to work towards getting that somewhat like a decent balance in life. So like work-life balance right now, is it good? And compared to how it was back then, is it?
I'd say, yeah, it's good now, for sure, because, you know, when you have one job, it's a lot easier to do that. But also when you're freelancing, you are in charge of your own shifts, so you can get balance in a different way. But I would say for journalism, I think it's always going to be a job where you have to make some kind of sacrifice. Like, I don't know, when I started at times I was doing overnights, I was doing early weekends, like, you will have to leave parties early because you've got work. You will have to work shifts that maybe your friends in 9-to-5s won't. But you also get to do the most fun job ever, and it's always so exciting, and there's 1,000,001 opportunities that you'll get as well that you wouldn't get if you were in any other job. So balance, yeah, making sacrifices, but also there's always a payoff.
Yeah, of course. Like in another episode, like somebody said it to me and just put it to me quite bluntly, and I was like, you know what? I respect it.
Yeah.
They were just like, if you want to have that work-life balance, then you have to work towards it. It doesn't just come naturally. There are sacrifices that are going to have to be made.
Yeah, I think every job I've done in journalism, I've had to sacrifice something for it, but I would never say, oh, I regret that, or it hasn't been worth it, because at the end of the day, you're doing a job you love. Like that's, and also a job that you know, like your past self, like if I went and spoke to myself, like you were saying earlier, if I went and spoke to myself on the course, she'd have been so gassed that I was doing this. She'd be so excited that I was doing this right now. So I think, knowing that you've been working for it for a long time, then
So then, obviously, you got the staff role after that point of time you were freelancing.
Yeah.
So tell us about the staff role and that first, like, proper, okay, I'm a full-time employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, how was that?
It was so exciting, I think, because it was like my first proper job, and it was the part of freelancing that I loved the most. So I was doing news bulletins for Times, TalkSport, and Virgin Radio. And I was also kind of their roving reporter every now and then. So I'd go out and get to do like live hits. I did a lot of strikes and picket lines. When the Queen died, that was huge for us. Within, I think, 10 minutes of the announcement happening, I was down outside Buckingham Palace in the pouring rain with my mic, doing live hits, running for like 10 minutes to try and get some signal, and then going back down and doing vox pops. And I had like such an intense week going around doing it, so that was really exciting. So it was really nice to have that mix of like reading bulletins and then going out and doing live reporting as well.
How cool was it like to go out to the picket lines and to protest and have those conversations? Like when I was like at uni on my student paper, like every single year, whenever I needed a story around November time, I was going down to the COP. So I went to COP 26, 27, 28. It was just, I don't know, I just enjoyed having those conversations with people that maybe, like obviously none of them were like world beaters or anyway. They were just people that were just passionate about it, and sometimes those conversations are the best. So like, have you had that same sort of experience? Yeah.
That's why you do it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Journalism is about talking to people, sharing their stories, having conversations with people. You never want to be sitting in an office. Like, you want to be out there with people, finding out why something matters to them and why it's important to them. So yeah, I used to love going out onto picket lines and chatting to people and getting those vox pops, and also just actually being there. I used to find really exciting, like being there for the big moments, whether it was strikes or the Queen's death, or like now in my job, going out and doing so many different things as well. I was outside the Eras tour. I've been to cheerleading practices with world champion cheer teams. I've been stood outside football matches, and like that, you know, when something huge is going on. When the Lionesses won the Euros, I was at their celebration. Like, there's no other job where you get to be there and in that moment. So I think, it's so exciting.
Yeah, no, obviously. You made the 30 under 30 for the Radio Academies one?
Yeah.
Okay. Just about got the words out. Just about. For that, like, you said you spoke about your time covering the Conservative leadership race, the Queen's death, all of that. Like, so in terms of whenever there is like a big event like that, like the Queen's death, like how does like work change in that sort of in that sort of moment? So is it like Fleet Street sort of vibes where everybody, the entire newsroom is like going crazy or anything like that? Like, just put me in the headspace of that, if you get a question.
Oh, I think it's been different in every newsroom I've worked in, like every kind of big event. But I would say now it's very much like an all hands on deck, everyone rallies together. And I think you're all kind of in the same headspace, right? Like you all know that the big moments are kind of why you do it. So everyone ramps up the enthusiasm as well. And if it's a sad story, of course, like I'm not saying you're like buzzing it's happened or anything like that, but I think the commitment level definitely, not that you're not committed every day, but when it's a big moment, it's like, I'm here to support you. What do you need? I'll do it now.
Yeah,
and that's, it's a good place to be.
Yeah, that's, it's like I call that almost like the journalist slip. Like in the same way where it's like something like really horrible has happened, but then the first reaction is, oh my gosh, this has happened, let's cover it, blah, blah, blah. And everyone gets not excited, but you're just like, okay, you lock.
You lock in, I think, and then you'll go home and sit on your sofa and be like, oh, that happened.
That actually happened.
Yeah, 100%.
So prior to your time at getting into journalism, so essentially we're leaving journalism for a second.
Okay.
And you spoke about a little bit of time working for the NHS.
Yeah.
So tell me about that time and why did you make that switch into journalism?
So I, at my university, it was very much like grad scheme kind of focus towards the end of your degree. And I managed to get a place on the NHS graduate management scheme, which was really valuable and I learned a lot. I actually started that a week before lockdown. So my first few months working in a hospital were, I think, probably very different to a lot of other people's might be. But I'd done student radio at university. One of my friends had been like, you would enjoy this, like get yourself down here. And I did, I loved it. I remember reading my first bulletin and it took me like, gosh, an hour and a half to put together. And I really missed it. And while I was there doing this office job, and obviously it was, a really important job to be doing at the time, I kind of knew a long time it wasn't necessarily right for me. So I started kind of looking into how I might get into journalism and realised I needed the NCTJ and came here. So it felt very dramatic, like quitting my job and being like, I'm retraining, I'm going to do something completely different. But every day it's a decision I'm glad I made because there was nothing wrong with my old job, but it just wasn't the right job for me. And I think I would have always had, like I'm sure a lot of people who want to be journalists have, that kind of itch that they want to go out and do something like this.
I guess it takes a lot of courage to make a big switch like that, especially for being on a graduate scheme, but obviously it seems like it worked out. Drama queen. So in terms of your time at university and obviously maybe a little bit to the NHS graduate scheme, was there any times in those sorts, so you did French and Spanish at uni, and then obviously went on to the graduate scheme. Did that time, did you learn any lessons during that time that surprisingly prepared you for journalism? That's the question.
Oh, that is a really good question. I would say I don't necessarily use my medieval French literature modules a load now, but my languages have really come into use. When I was working in documentary development, there was something we were working on that was to do with Tenerife Airport, and I ended up translating all those meetings, which was really out of pocket, but quite funny. And I would say part of my degree involved living abroad. That taught me a lot of valuable lessons, especially in confidence and in terms of self-sufficiency. I always said if I could do that, I can kind of do anything. But yeah, I would say the skills that you get from your degree are always going to be transferable. You're always going to have to write essays, and even though that might not be in the same sort of style that you would write at all in a journalism career, it's never going to not help you out. It's never going to be something that you're like, oh, that was a waste of time. Because I think any degree you do will end up being useful when you're in a job that is as wide-ranging as this one.
Yeah, of course. Languages in journalism, it can only help. And so you fluent in both French and Spanish.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very impressive. In terms of so how long were you out in France and then how long? So
we did our year abroad was kind of from when you finish uni at the end of June and then you go round to the next September, October. So I did summers in each and then I did 6 month work or study placements in both France and Spain.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good fun.
Because obviously you weren't working as a journalist during that time.
Not at all,
but,
no.
Did you see or witness any change in the way that the media reported on stuff? Just from being there around that time, or no? Because
honestly, like journalism was not on my radar until probably like my 4th year of uni. Was when I started kind of getting involved with like student publications and student radio and stuff. Initially, just like a hobby, that has now turned into a career. But yeah, at that time, honestly, it wasn't something that I'd even contemplated really. I thought I wanted to be like a teacher or something. I wasn't really sure.
So then going into that 4th year, so you did some work for Palatinate.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Like you did Palatinate. Can I remember the others? Because I think there was 3.
Can I remember the others? I did, Palatinate, the Bubble, I think was one of the student radios.
Yes.
No, student papers.
Yes.
So Palatinate, the Bubble, and obviously Purple Radio.
Yes.
Which was Durham's student radio station, which, I loved it there.
And it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like there was also the definite article?
The definite article. Yep, that was our languages paper. This is some good
cool.
research. You know more about me than I do, apparently.
We try our best.
Yeah, real journalist. Purple Radio is what I did most. So I was part of their news team. We did a load of stuff on we had so much drama trying to find like student houses. So we did a lot of investigations into that. We did a load of debates. Like I said, I used to do like news bulletins and stuff. It was my friend who now also works in like podcasts and radio that dragged me into it. And I'm forever grateful that he did.
So in terms of like being involved, so you mainly work for Purple Radio, but that was what you did a lot of work on. How was it? So like, obviously Palatinate was that very much like writing, reporting, that sort of thing. And then obviously radio and podcasts. Like, was it like really like important for you during that time to like have like this multimedia sort of approach where you're just doing a bit of everything?
I think I was just trying to work out what I enjoyed. I guess like anybody, and Durham was a very like society heavy uni, hopefully it still is now. People would just kind of like get involved however they could, whenever, whatever they could, and just try new things. So I think a lot of the time, like when I was writing for Palatinate or writing reviews or writing about languages, it was just to see if I was any good at it or if it was something that I enjoyed. And radio was definitely the thing that stuck. Obviously, online, I've written stuff for BBC Online as well. And I think it's super important that you have a range of skills. But yeah, that was definitely, rather than me trying to have a multimedia approach, it was definitely me just figuring it out.
Like, when I was at uni, because it wasn't that long ago at all, during that time I was just trying to just get involved. Like I started off thinking I wanted to become a fashion journalist. But now I'm working in like broadcasting. Like,
you've got a great tie though, so
that's always the way. Yeah, I started off wanting to become a fashion journalist, and then from that point onwards, time progressed, and now I'm doing this sort of thing. So it's always good to know that don't have to have things worked out like immediately.
100%. I thought I was going to play lacrosse. One session, that really was never going to happen.
So now I wonder, like, this is just me asking the question out of just pure curiosity. Where in France? Because I visit France quite often, which is quite cool. So like,
I lived in Paris. Yeah,
Nice.
I did HR for a company that provided English teachers. So I do that HR in the morning, and then I go and teach English to 3 to 11-year-olds, like anywhere between that, in the afternoons.
Would like working as a journalist abroad ever be something of interest to you, or because I guess as well,
I mean, never say never. Like, it seems like really exciting.
Yeah, I guess like options wise, you've always got, because in journalism wise anyway, relocation wise, you've got a little bit of options. So that's something I always keep my mind on.
Yeah.
Like but with that, I think time has progressed quite well. Final question before I want to get into the Fast and Furious round is, so tell me about, so like obviously you decided that journalism was going to be an option for you somewhat later on in your life. So when was that first moment where you were like, okay, this is the moment where I'm like, all right, becoming a journalist is going to be the career for me. I'm going to make this happen.
I don't know if there's like one specific moment, because I think it was such a gradual thing. But I think since there've been so many moments where I've been like, I'm so glad I picked this career. It's so different and so much fun and so exciting. And I would say to anybody that's not sure, at least try it, because there's so many different places you can go with it, and there will be some part of it that is for you. And who knows, like, yeah, you might have that gradual shift into being like, oh, I don't know, I'm not too sure if this is for me or not. But maybe you'll end up being there like, yeah, this was the right thing. And it's a job unlike anything else. So it's definitely something that I'd encourage anyone to have a go at.
Okay, so with that, I think we have a bit more of an understanding into where your career has gone so far, the highlights, the amazing stuff you've been able to do as of so far. But now, I want to get into the questions that really matter.
Okay,
So
I'm ready.
I'm gonna start firing them, but I do call it the Fast and Furious round, but it's never really that quick. So if you want to like expand,
Right, okay.
honestly,
Of course.
feel free. Full license. So the first one is: are you an extrovert or are you an introvert?
Oh, I'm an extrovert.
Yeah.
I talk for a living. Yeah. I'm an extrovert.
Nice. And then early riser or night owl?
Early riser, big
Early riser.
time. Breakfast shifts as well. Like,
Oh yeah.
I'm talking 3:30, 4 a.m. get-ups.
Like for the most part, I guess, for journalists anyway, especially like in broadcast, early risers.
Yeah.
It just very much.
You've got to be able to sleep whenever, wherever, I think.
What would be your dream interview if you haven't interviewed them already?
Oh, that is such a good question. I know this is meant to be fast and furious, isn't it?
No, so you can expand if you want.
I feel like a band like Coldplay is super hard to pin down.
Yeah.
So maybe someone like that, but honestly, I would love to do an Ariana, Cynthia, Wicked interview because they always end up in tears. And they always end up like singing or, so I'd love to get inside the room with one of those, I think.
Yeah, because especially the Wicked interviews, every single one that I've seen has just been, well, always just fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Like, I never know what's going to actually happen in the interview.
Yeah.
You never know what path is going to go down, but regardless, it's always very entertaining.
Yeah, and I always end up singing when I'm vox popping with people, so I feel like I would end up in a room with them as a musical theatre lover myself, like humiliating myself in front of them.
No, that's completely valid. So let's say after this, you have struck gold, and your boss essentially told you, okay, I've set you up with an interview with Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande.
Yeah.
And then after that, you've also got Coldplay.
Coldplay was just a random name I picked out as like a big name.
But what would you do to essentially put yourself in the like proper mindset to interview these people?
Right, before any job interview, this is going to sound slightly bizarre. I always listen to Applause by Lady Gaga.
Oh, okay.
Really gets me psyched and in the right mindset to do something that scares me a bit.
Yeah.
And it hasn't let me down yet.
Okay.
So that would be my hack.
Future Plamedi, when he's editing this, will have to give it a listen.
I think it's because I did cheer at uni and it was always in our music and it was like a real you've just got to go and do it when the song ends.
Okay, so then let's say your interview with them has gone brilliant, and they're like, all right, Eleanor, what are you going to, like, we're hungry, we want some food, and you have the opportunity to cook them a meal. What are you making for them?
Ooh, I make a really good shakshuka.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That's very valid. Yeah, completely valid.
Fail safe.
Yeah, that works out quite nicely. And then following up on the music sort of vibe, favorite concert that you've ever been to?
I went to see Maisie Peters with two of my best mates last year, and it was just like, when you're with the right people at the right place at the right time, and that album had just been like the soundtrack to our summer, so like hearing it live at, I think it was OVO in Wembley, maybe?
Yeah.
Like the one, Wembley Arena.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a really, really fun night.
No, that's like, that must have been a good one.
But also, I should probably say Radio 1 Big Weekend as well. Being there as someone that worked for Radio 1 and seeing Coldplay.
Yes.
With my friends, my friend from university that I mentioned that got me into student radio, we'd seen a Coldplay tribute band at our college day at university called Coldplace.
Yeah.
And there was a video of us watching them, and then so he put it together with this video of us watching Coldplay at Big Weekend, both as people that worked for Radio 1, and it felt very full circle.
That is pretty cool. The Big Weekend, the fact that I didn't go to it is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, still time.
Because it was, last year, it was obviously in Luton.
In Luton, yeah.
Which is home.
Oh no, really?
So, that where it was in Stockwell Park, 5-minute walk.
Hearing Sabrina Carpenter be like, "Hello, Luton," which is so surreal.
Honestly, every video of it has just blows my mind. Like, it doesn't compute that probably the biggest band in the world, Sabrina Carpenter, all of these different people were at Stockwell Park. That's the
great thing about it, though.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So then, favorite TV show?
New Girl.
New Girl.
Yeah,
okay.
It's probably one of the only shows that can make me like properly like cry, laugh.
Yeah, okay. Like, and the thing is, when I get recommended these TV shows, I actually do watch them. So
Parks and Rec as well.
Great
and Rec. One.
Okay, with was it
Amy Poehler?
Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm literally just.
You write it down the records.
Favorite holiday destination?
Oh, that's a really good question. I got to go to New York with my family in September, and that had been somewhere I'd wanted to go for ages, so that was amazing. But if I wanted like a chill holiday, probably somewhere South Spain.
Yeah.
Love it there.
That's safe, quite nice. Beaches, good vibes.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. And then favorite movie, last few.
Ooh, About Time is such a good film, but also I love a musical, so like West Side Story would be up there. Hairspray, love it.
I watched About Time like 2-3 weeks ago.
Did you cry?
Yeah, it was.
Really.
It was. That was just like a boom, gut punch. But great watch though, great watch.
It's just so emotional. Yeah, so I have to really pick the moment to watch that one. But yeah, a musical always hits.
Yeah. And then, what are you currently reading?
Oh, so I'm actually part of a book club.
Oh, okay.
So I often don't get much say in what I'm reading. So I've just finished a book called My Year of Rest and Relaxation. And my favourite book I've read recently has been The Husbands, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, really good book. Is this literally just for your recommendations? You just getting them all down?
It's a bit of both. So like, it does actually put me in good stead. Like, I was like recommended like industry from one of these episodes.
Everyone's going to have given better answers than me.
I will not say anybody else's answers, but your answers have been great. They have been great.
They've been very basic.
Yeah. Final one is one word to describe your career as of right now.
Ooh, fun.
Fun?
Yeah,
okay.
I've had a fun time.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for coming onto the How to Be a Journalist podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
No, it actually has been. Like, it's just been quite smooth, and it's one of those ones where I think the listeners will have like learned a lot from it.
I hope so.
I hope so too. Okay, so with that, I've been Plamedi Mbungu, and this is How to Be a Journalist.